Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. I was just scrolling across a whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to give you an update on a whole bunch of different sectors, different things. Just look at a bunch of different things here in this presentation video. We'll look at the overall market update. We'll do an overall market. We'll look at some of the companies that are actually holding up pretty well. I would say that's the diversified mining companies. They seem to be doing pretty well. We'll go over some of the individual commodities, see what they're doing, just to kind of go across and see what the heck's going on. It looks like everything's kind of pulling back, and it looks like we're pulling back today. And hopefully, what I'm looking for is hopefully we see some sort of reversal pattern today or sometime, because it does feel like we're getting kicked in the nuts here. I mean, it's selling off, and I don't like seeing this large of a pullback, but I will say this: there's a lot of opportunities out there. We have not bottomed yet on some of this stuff like platinum and silver. Looks like it's getting a pretty good sized pullback. But that's when opportunities present themselves for buying. When things are down, that is when you have to get aggressive. Do absolutely opposite of everyone else. If you do that, you're going to get some good buys. And getting good buys means that you're going to have some good investments for the long term if you can get at cheap prices. So, I mean, that's the whole deal. I mean, we know that all this stuff is cheap. I know for a fact that at some point it's going to get expensive. I just don't know when. But with it pulling back, and I know people, their emotions can sometimes get the best of them. Don't let that happen. I'm here with you. I'm doing the same thing that you guys would be doing. I don't have a ton of cash to be piling in right now, but I would be buying soon, probably whenever we get that turn. And all you can do is try your best to see this thing turn and come back up, because it doesn't tell you if it's going to be a sustaining turn or not. It does look like some of these are pulling back quite a bit. I've got the palladium chart behind me. I suspect that palladium would come back. And we can look at some of the ratios too. But let's dive in here. I'll give you my financial opinion. Please don't use this as advice. But here we go, diving in here. I just was looking at a bunch of different things. Here's the commodity palladium. We came up into this, basically squeezed up into this corner, and it blew out to the downside. And we've been pulling back with palladium, and it's a very good pullback. I mean, we reached the top here at about $3,000, and we're literally almost getting cut in half. We're at 1,590. But palladium's had an expensive ratio against platinum, expensive ratio against gold. And this thing, I think, eventually I was suspecting a pretty large pullback in it, where if you look at the ratio, and we can do that soon, against platinum, that platinum is vastly outperforming palladium just because it hasn't gone down as much from at least from where I purchased. So palladium's getting hit pretty hard. Looking at lumber's doing quite well. We came out of this pattern here to the upside. So lumber's is doing very well. There it is. I'm just looking at this right-hand side there. There it is. Boom, coming up. Now this thing's going to oscillate back and forth, and it could very well pull back like the rest. We've got nickel. So nickel here does look like this thing is going to pull back. So we could see a good size pullback in nickel. This is a large ascending wedge pattern where we could see a pullback. And it's almost as if all these commodities pulled up quite dramatically off the 2020 lows, and we're getting our first, I'd say, major pullback in the markets. And I do think that they'll do well over time, but we are, like nickel here, looks like we could get a pullback if this thing launches to the downside. We got a bearish engulfing pattern at the tip of this thing here. And what I'm thinking is this thing's probably ready to break to the downside. So be careful with nickel. We could see a pullback here. Copper, I mean, on a weekly basis, copper's putting in a bearish engulfing too. A lot of fear out in the markets. There's your downward move today. We got to see if this trend line, downward trend line, if it acts as support and supports it. We could see a sell-off in a whole bunch of things. We could have a little bit larger sell-off. Here's the S&P 500. I was looking at that. Back out a little bit. I mean, this thing's in stratospheric area. 100% move from the lows down here, basically. Over 100% move. Is this going to be a top? I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be a top or not, but I mean, it doesn't look horrible, the chart right here, just looking at it. This one's got a nice big bearish engulfing right at the tip for a weekly candlestick basis. You know, here's a bearish engulfing there too, and you can see the pullback. This is a much larger pullback than what we've gone through so far. So that's the U.S. Composite Index. I believe that's the NASDAQ. Or it's not the NASDAQ. That's different. It must be the Dow Jones or something. Coming up here, go to the diversified mining companies. This has been holding together okay in the recent month or so. But we've broken the downtrend line. We've come up, kind of broken up here, and we've just been chilling sideways at the moment. I don't know if this fear is going to come around and hit the diversified mining companies or not, but I mean, they're hanging out. They're doing okay, but they could roll over just like everything else. Here's Rio. Rio had that downtrend channel. It broke to the upside. It's hanging out. They're being strong. BHP is still above its support line, and it's just bouncing sideways. We've got Glencore, which is hanging out above its big old support line from a very long-term perspective, so it's doing fine. Norilsk nickel's getting a little bit of pressure, and if the nickel price falls out, this could drop to the downside for Norilsk nickel, because nickel's looking. Nickel could drop to the downside. Very, very high probability there. We're moving sideways on tech resources. Again, we're right above its massive pattern. And these are big breakouts, guys. When they go, they're going to go big. They'll have very big high price projections. And this guy's looking like it's breaking to the upside for Freeport. McMoran, it's a copper company. Again, we're moving sideways. Broke to the upside, moving sideways. It's been quite resilient in this sell-off period. And Southern Copper is looking okay. We're still in the pattern. Still doing all right. Alphamin, that's a tin company. Looks like it's starting to droop over and fall over. This one looks like it could have a pullback here for Alphamin Resources. And I own a lot of these. I own Alphamin. Am I going to do anything? No, I'm just going to hold on, and it could pull back quite a bit. We could have a pullback. Cell 32 has been quite strong. It's been in this strong uptrend for a pretty long time. Here's Anglo American Platinum. You kind of get these sell-offs or whatever. Here's another one here. We're kind of right at the tip of it. Maybe it can break to the upside, but I don't know why it would, with a lot of stuff pulling back the way it has. It's been quite resilient. Impala Platinum has been resilient as well. It's just been kind of hanging out. Hasn't really gone up or down. Platinum Group Metals, on the other hand, has been quite weak. I mean, palladium's been pretty weak. This is a major palladium producer. So this one has been a little bit weak on the weak side. And then we got Nova. This one's been a little bit weak as well. It's playing with its resistance line at the moment. If nickel drops, I mean, we could have this drop a little bit further and pull back if nickel pulls back. So we might have another buying opportunity ahead of us. And when I buy these things, guys, these are long, like they're pretty long-term holds. I'm hoping that I can get a nickel copper diversified royalty company, which this is. And when we hit some years out, I'm going to continue to cost average in when it's cheap. And when we hit some years out, this thing will be paying off massively as we try to ramp EVs and other things. And we need the materials for it. And it's all going to be copper and nickel based. So I'll stop it there. I mean, I don't think I have too much else to really talk about at the moment. I guess I will talk about, I mean, solar's been hit pretty hard too. I'll just pull up TAN. This is the TAN. What we have here is we broke out, we did a retest, and it's still in that retest mode at the moment. It came back into the pattern. So some of these, I mean, they're getting hit. Some, like Sunworks, is falling to the downside. It's almost doing a full retest back to this guy on the big long-term pattern. You can see it pulling back, and I would wait for this momentum to dissipate if you want to add back, add into it or anything. SOL looks got a nice wick in the bottom there, so that's doing okay. It's bouncing at this support here, and hopefully it can hold on. Enphase getting hit kind of hard. They're pulling back just like everything else. This guy's pulling back, almost doing a retest for fuel cell, and plug. It's pulling back just like the rest of the gang. And that's the wind. Wind's been pulling back. I probably wouldn't get into it yet, but we might have a good entry point here if it pulls all the way back to its breakout level, way back at $6, and that's a huge pullback. Inverted head and shoulders broke out. We might get a pullback, and then we'll see what happens. But that's again, guys, diversified miners look the strongest. Would I be adding in? I would be waiting to see what the heck's going on, and the way that I would probably play it is I'd go after the ones that got hit pretty hard. The diversified mining companies did get hit pretty hard originally. They're just kind of stabilizing now. But the energy companies and uranium's getting hit pretty hard. I would be looking at uranium to add into, and maybe even some of these precious metal companies if they can fall back enough. But they've fallen back enough. What I mean is when they get some strength and start to come back up, that's when I would add into it. I never add into complete weakness, especially if the candlesticks are adding, like they're coming back and they're ending quite strong, like the one behind me. I wouldn't add in yet. I would wait for it to put in a pattern or something. Like this is a reversal pattern here with a wick at the bottom like that. That I could add into. I could add in when it comes back up, and then give you some momentum to the upside. I would not add in on a candlestick that's ending low. It means there's a good momentum and it could potentially continue lower. This is a big bearish engulfing too, so this could come all the way back, potentially. I don't have the crystal ball, but it's got a lot of momentum to come back down. And if you look across, there isn't much support through here. So there's no reason for it to really find support. There's going to be support about 9/11 and probably down here where the line is. So I would be patient. That's me. And I'm not saying to go into Vestas wind energy. I was just commenting on what I look for. If you guys like the content, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.